Hey, what's up guys? Today's video is gonna be on whether or not you can and should use boxing shoes for running. So stay tuned. Hey, what's up guys? Carlo here, and in today's video I wanted to quickly answer the question on whether or not you could or should wear boxing shoes to do your road work. Could you? Technically you could. Technically you could run barefoot if you wanted to. That's completely up to you. Should you? My recommendation is definitely not. I mean, to me, that's what running shoes are made for. I have these Brooks Adrenaline GTS 19. I've had these for maybe 2 years now, and these worked out really well for me, but I'll kind of get into a little bit more detail with these here in a second. But boxing shoes, the whole premise behind boxing shoes is to have the best footwork, control, and to feel really planted to the surface that you're working on, which obviously would be a boxing ring, in most cases the canvas that you're working on. So look at boxing shoes kind of like a sports car. It has a very low center of gravity. When you sit in a Corvette, you're really sitting low in the car. The seats sit kind of lower to the floor of the car. So the windowsill is usually up a little bit higher. And when you're looking, if you're outside looking into a sports car, typically when you see the person, you just really see their head because they're sitting so low. It's not like a truck or a family car like a Toyota Camry where they're a little bit more upright. So you see a little bit high, more of their upper body. That's kind of like a running shoe. With the boxing shoes or wrestling shoes, you're really planted low. You have a thinner sole, so you have a lot more feel for the boxing ring. You have a good amount of grip, not too much grip to where you feel like you're going to snag on the canvas, but good enough grip for lateral, side-to-side movement, back and forward movement, pivoting. Obviously in boxing, you're moving around a lot, and your footwear should enable you to feel that you have that flexibility without having to think about it. It kind of removes that obstacle out of your mind. It's one less thing you have to worry about when you have a good pair of boxing shoes on, because you can move freely, you can pivot, you can move out of the way, and your shoes should complement you in that regard. So you have a good amount of grip, you have a flatter sole, which is not good for running. So because of the sole being so thin, you're not gonna get a lot of cushioning and support and impact resistance. So you could sparingly use this for like conditioning exercises, or even doing any kind of like interval training. But once you start getting into more high impact workouts like box jumps, things that will put a lot of impact on your feet and eventually your knees and your lower back, then you could see that with boxing shoes, whether it's these Title Innovates or even like Macho Minds or the Hyper KOs, they all generally have thinner soles. The only ones that I know of that have kind of more of a hybrid sole would be like the Everlast Elite or Pivot shoes, where you could tell that Everlast wanted to kind of make it a hybrid shoe where you have a little bit of a thicker sole. So if you wanted to do a little bit more high impact workouts, you don't have to switch your shoes out. But you can still do traditional boxing workouts, working out in the ring, sparring, or even using them in a pro fight. Completely up to you. But you can see here with the sole being as thin as it is, you're not going to get much cushioning whatsoever. The upper is really nice and soft. You have a good amount of ankle support with this to really lock in your ankle. The whole premise behind that is if you do take a fall, the last thing you want to do is twist your ankle or cause an injury on your ankle and your foot. So usually the upper on a boxing shoe is a lot softer to give it a little bit more of a sock-like feel that wraps around your foot. Some of the newer shoes like the Hyper KO 2.0s use a little bit more high-tech features like a fly knit material, which is a little bit more rigid. Even the Title Predator boxing shoes have a little more of a rigid feel. And it really just depends on your personal taste when you put your foot in there. I can't really vouch for that because everyone's different. Boxing shoes traditionally are also a little bit more narrow. So you get more of a narrow kind of more tight feel because again, you want to feel like you have less on your foot, and you don't want to be reminded that you have footwear on. It should feel seamless. It should feel part of your body. So using this for road work, when I'm running with this, you feel every bump in the road. And then going back to that sports car analogy, if you've ever been in a sports car or a car that's lowered, you could run over a pebble and feel it. Where if you're in like a luxury car or a family car, you can hit a speed bump and you'll feel it, but it's really comfortable. The shocks and the springs are real soft and it doesn't jolt your body. If you're in a low sports car, You could hit a little rock in the road and you'll feel that bump in that car. And it's the same thing with boxing shoes. When you're running, man, you feel it. I already have lower back problems, so it's definitely not a big no-no for me to use these for running. But when I did run these, I did 2 miles in these shoes, and about a mile in, I wanted to take these damn things off because they hurt so bad. And my lower back hurt, my heel hurt. I'm a heel striker for those of you that are runners that actually kind of get into that whole running thing, but I'm a heel striker, so that's definitely a big no-no for me. But you feel it in your feet, definitely in your knees, your calves start to get a little sore, and your lower back. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it. Like again, it's really subjective. Some people have different structure with their bone and the cushioning in their feet, so they might feel more comfortable with running. I guess best case scenario is if you have a treadmill, then maybe you can get away with running with these on a treadmill, because a treadmill has springs as shocks built into the actual belt. So when you land on the treadmill with your legs, it has more cushioning than running outside on concrete or even asphalt. Some tracks, if you go to like a high school or somewhere that has an actual track, sometimes the tracks have that cushioning material. So when you run on it, it's a lot more forgiving on your feet, your knees, and your lower back. So that might be better off. But again, I would still stick to running shoes. And you can just see right here with these Brooks Adrenalines are considered to be some of the more cushioned running shoes. And you can just see with the outsole how much more cushioned it is. But I believe they use this thing called DNA, which is their version of a sole that they use, and it's very cushioned and soft feeling. So when I put my feet in here with my socks, it's just extremely comfortable. I have a little bit wider toe box, so for me in my running shoe, it's snug enough, but it doesn't feel too tight. Especially when you start to get hot, your feet start to swell up a little bit, and when you're running and your feet start to swell up, your feet get a little bit bigger and you need a little bit more room, especially if you have thicker socks on. But just the overall feel of the insole, the cushioning on a running shoe, that's what it's designed for. I mean, you can go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however miles you want to go. You could do a full marathon if you wanted to in running shoes and you relatively feel good. So it's really for the longevity of your body to get yourself a good pair of running shoes. I can't stress that enough. It's like a good pair of boxing gloves. You don't want to abuse or neglect that part of your body when it comes to your hands, especially your feet, because that's your foundation of everything is going to be your feet. So in my opinion, can you use boxing shoes for doing your road work? Technically you can. Should you? No, you shouldn't. I definitely recommend getting yourself a pair of good running shoes that are cushioned well, that you could run longer, and it's also a benefit. Now you can run longer and further. You can get better conditioning and better workouts in. And it's just a much better feeling when you have a good pair of running shoes on and use it for what it's designed for. So if you guys have any questions or comments, make sure you guys leave your comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.